Hi everybody, my name's Amelia and welcome back to my channel. Okay, so I've been wanting to do this video for a long time. For those of you who do not know, I assign zodiac signs to every single one of my decks. During the interview process, when I'm interviewing a tarot deck, one of the questions that I ask is, what would your zodiac sign be if you had to pick one? And I let the deck tell me, and I would say like 80% of the time, the deck's choice or its assessment of its own zodiac sign tends to be quite accurate once I get to know the deck more and I start working with it and I see how that energy plays out in my life, and I would say that the energies align very nicely. And so anyway, because I give all of my decks a zodiac sign, I thought it would be really fun to share that in a video. So today I'm going from Aries through Pisces, just the whole list, all the 12 zodiac signs. I am going to go through the entire zodiac cycle wheel and share with you the decks that I have that fit for each sign based on what the deck has told me and based on the energy that is connected to that deck as I work with it, plus a little bit of backstory and just like some chatting. Now, I want to point out that this is going to be slightly different from another video series, or at least a video that I want to do. Long story short, Dawn Michelle recently made a video on her channel on TarotTube about her decks that feel like Aries energy. And that was so stinking cool and so fun, and I want to do something similar, but I don't have a lot of decks to choose from at the moment. And I'm actually waiting on a few pre-orders that I've put out a long time ago, and they haven't arrived yet. So I'm waiting on a few decks, but once those come in, I'm going to include Oracle as well, and I'm going to try to make videos about like, these are decks that feel like Aries, based on aesthetics only. The difference though is that today's video is about the decks that feel like the energy, but may not look like the energy of that zodiac sign. So for example, I might have a deck that has a lot of like red and orange and yellow tones in it, and you might be thinking, oh, fire sign, but actually it's a water sign because of how the deck works with me. That's kind of how this video is going to go. So this is specifically related to the zodiac signs that I assign each of my decks, or like that they tell me is their sign. So I'm just going to be looking at it in that perspective, and I'm only using tarot today. But if you guys are interested in seeing a different sort of video where I look at aesthetics specifically and talk about which decks based on aesthetics only would be good for certain zodiac signs, let me know. But this video is specifically about the deck's zodiac signs that it said it has in the interview process. Anyway, I'm so excited to do this video. I've been wanting to do it for so long, so yeah, I'm excited. Let's just dive in. But before we do, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you like this kind of stuff. It really helps out me and the channel. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. And as always, be sure to leave down in the comments below any video requests that you have or your thoughts on them. If you like these tarot videos, I will be happy to make more of them. I love flipping through my decks, and I love seeing how they're assigned to the different zodiac signs. I hope that this is super accurate. Leave your zodiac sign down below and let me know if you think these decks resonate with you based on how that deck likes to communicate, and not necessarily just based on aesthetics. But anyway, yeah, that's enough for this intro, so let's just go ahead and start diving in, and we'll start off with Aries. Alright, and so it begins. So starting, first things first, this is my Aries deck. It is my only Aries deck. So this is the deck of Luminaries Tarot. This is an independently published deck by Lumaine, and I love this. Now, for those of you who may be new here, or in case you forgot, I really don't like modern decks at all. Modern decks just are not my thing. I don't know what it is about them. I feel like it loses, when a deck is modern, it misses out on that spiritual sort of connection, I guess. And also a lot of modern depictions just don't feel right. They don't feel to me like that energy of that card. So I feel like there's usually multiple cards that just don't fit. This deck is not like that at all, and it might be one of the only modern decks that I absolutely love. So this is the deck of Luminaries Tarot, this little guidebook. One of the main reasons that this deck is an Aries for me is because the guidebook is so stinking blunt. It is so blunt. It says what it says what it says. I don't know, like it says what it means and it means what it says, you know? So here are the cards. They're on this really, really pretty, like, linen cardstock, but it's very thin. I don't know, I really like it. It shuffles beautifully. There are going to be some reversals in here. Hold on, I'll try to flip them up right. It's a beautiful deck. Look how pretty. It's just, the colors are amazing. I love this deck, but this deck kicks your butt. This deck is bold. It is confrontational. It's impulsive. It throws out the most challenging cards, and I think it's a bit dramatic in that way, but I love it. This deck also is just kind of, I don't want to say rude, but it is. This, in particular, this deck is. It definitely has a, I'm better than you, I will win whatever game we're trying to play, like I'm going to beat you at your own game, don't think you can hide from me, I'm the more powerful person in the room. And as a Scorpio sun, I find this to be very challenging, and yeah, I have a bone to pick. So I love this energy. I love Aries energy so much. I love Mars energy as a Scorpio. Again, like both of our ruling planets, Scorpio and Aries, are Mars. And traditionally speaking, Scorpio also has Pluto, but I think this deck is just so fun. I don't know. It is bold. I did a reading with it yesterday and it was so dramatic. It threw out like the devil and then, oh, what were the other cards? I can't even remember. It threw out the devil, I think, and the chariot, you know, like at the same time, like, oh, you have a toxic relationship. You know what, actually, I think it was all these cards right here, except for these. Okay, so yeah, like these cards were all in the reading, like the star, the devil, the luminaries, which is the unique card in this deck. It's about seeing signs, finding connection, all of that good stuff. Yeah, this deck likes to come at me, and it comes at me really harsh, but I enjoy it. I usually don't like card depictions in the Chariot, and I will say it's not one of my favorite cards, but I'm okay with it in this deck, since everything is so modern. Normally, I don't love modern things, but this is just... Look at this King of Pentacles. Look at that man. He has like a record and everything. It's so great. I love this deck. But yeah, I didn't expect this deck to be an Aries, to be honest with you. And then it was. And I was trying to do readings with it, and every time I did, it was just like really, really blunt, really confrontational, very much like, I don't know, like just Martian energy, you know, like Mars energy. And I was like, yep, you are an Aries. And I asked the deck, and it wouldn't actually tell me its zodiac sign. It was very much a you need to figure this out kind of thing. But then the more I read with it, the more obvious it became. So it's not like it's trying to hide its zodiac sign, but at the same time, it made me work for it. So good for it, honestly. But I love this deck. It's so cool. And the guidebook, while just filled with keywords mostly for each card, it's very cute. And I like looking at the keywords, surprisingly. I think because they're so blunt and impactful that, like, when I read with the keywords with this deck, I feel like I'm getting that punch in the gut that I deserve. So, yeah, take with that what you will, but that's my Aries deck right there. Deck of Luminaries Tarot. Okay, Taurus deck. Oh gosh, my voice broke on that one. Taurus deck. I have the White Newman, a Sacred Animal Tarot, created by Alba BG. This deck is a Liminal 11 deck, and yeah, this is my Taurus deck. I feel like the Divine Feminine is just very obvious in this deck. Comes this little hardback guidebook. I don't really use the guidebook, but it does come with it. And here's the backs. They're not reversible, but I do read reversals. I just don't fan the deck like this because then it'd be obvious like which is reversed and which is not. I just shuffle over hand and then pull whatever comes. But yeah, so here is this deck. Again, apologies for all of the reversals. I do read with reversals, so. It's very cute. It's kind of cartoony. There's a lot of animals and nature like imagery and such in the deck. It's very elemental, like, you know, we have all this fire around the wands. I think it's a very elemental deck. But it's such an easy reader, honestly. I think it's really cute. Like, look at this little magician. Look at him. This is a deck I pull out to read for clients because I feel like Taurus energy is very practical energy, and this deck, I mean, look, we're on a bull now, you know, like it's very practical, and I would say this is kind of like a workhorse deck for me. I mean, it does the job. It loves reading for other people. It does a really good job of reading for other people, and like, I think it doesn't take itself too seriously, but at the same time, it's not too childish either. And I feel like that's really good for it, honestly. Like, I really like that. I don't know, it's weird looking at it because I can't think of it as anything else other than a Taurus deck. But the deck, when I did the interview with it, it told me it was a Taurus, and I was like, okay, we'll see, you know, and it just hasn't let me down yet. It's very much a Taurus deck. Very practical, very down to earth, and I feel like it gives very honest readings without being too harsh, like my Aries decks, for example, or my Capricorn decks, which can be very harsh. But yeah, it's a very solid reader. Very cute. I love this Hierophant. Look at that. Isn't that so cute? I love the Hierophant. I feel like with the White Newman, like, maybe this is why it's a Taurus, you know, like, it has the White Newman, it also has the Black Newman, but the White Newman being the bull, like, maybe that's why it's a Taurus deck, honestly. So, yeah. Now, unfortunately, this is my only Taurus deck. I would love to have more, but, you know, we just wait and see what happens, honestly. It's very much a process of, like, pick a deck that you resonate with, and it comes to you at the right time. This deck came to me when I needed help with finding stability in my life, and I feel like that makes sense for it being Taurus energy. So yeah, and I think that that's kind of how all these decks, they come to me when I need them and when I need to draw upon a certain type of energy, and Taurus energy is something I haven't really needed as much recently, but it was something I needed at a time, and I think that this has not let me down, and I love this. It's probably my most used deck with clients, in all honesty. Alright, so we're getting into the Gemini decks. So, I have two Gemini decks. First is the Mystic Fairy Tarot by Linda Ravenscroft. So, this deck comes in a bigger box, the bigger guidebook, but I just have the small version with this small little pamphlet of the cards, meanings, so. Anyway, this is my all-time favorite spring deck. We have this beautiful back here. It's funny that this is a spring deck when Gemini tends to be more of a summer, like, zodiac sign, but for whatever reason, this one is a Gemini and not a Taurus, or, you know, Taurus, whenever I think of nature, I think of Taurus, so that's why I bring that up, but this one's a Gemini. So, my Gemini decks, they are very chatty and a little bit confusing. And I don't know how to explain that, but I don't have a lot of air energy in my own birth chart, and the air energy that I do have is Aquarius. I love this Hermit. Look how cute he is. It is Aquarius energy. I don't have any Gemini in my birth chart at all. And I think because of that, it can make it hard for me to understand Gemini and its energy. I feel like Gemini is very flighty. I feel like Gemini is very talkative and expressive, and I tend to be more secretive and reserved. So I think that that can be, like, for both of us, like for both parties involved, it can be a very striking difference, a very startling thing to get used to. I love this Death card. Look how cute. But yeah, so I have a hard time understanding Gemini energy. We don't click as quickly, but at the same time, it might be one of my favorite decks to work with when working on communication, when working on trying to be more open and less reserved, I guess I should say, with myself and with others. And I love the fairies in this one. This deck was kind of hard to get used to. I do have a whole video about working with this particular deck because I had a hard time understanding it. This deck and I did not click very quickly, and it took a while to fully understand what it was trying to say to me and how we could work together. But after working with it, it's definitely one of my favorite spring decks. It's definitely one of my favorite spring decks, and I am ecstatic to pull it out again. 'Tis the season, you know? So, yeah, this is my not first Gemini deck, but one of the Gemini decks that when I look at this, I'm like, this is Gemini, you know? Okay, so next up we have my Cancer deck. So I only have one Cancer deck, and that is the Arcana Isis Sakura by Tina Gong. This is another independently published deck, and I think I only have 2 independently published tarot decks now that I think about it. But yeah, so this one was the first independent deck I ever purchased. It is gorgeous. It's also no longer my most expensive deck. Well, I mean, it's kind of tied for first place now, but it was my most expensive deck. So, put these out of the way. Okay. It has these beautiful gold edges and this beautiful back with the little gold foiling. I love the way this deck feels. It is so luxe. I love it. So this deck I mostly use for study. It's very much a study deck for me. It's Thoth-based, and I do use it in readings sometimes, but it can be kind of not like difficult to understand. It's very straightforward. It's just, I don't know, there's like, I don't want to say there's something missing. I just feel like the message is so soft and so carefully expressed that I feel like the deck is afraid to call me out. But this is my Cancer deck. It is very homey for sure. It definitely feels like something that I could just keep at home, use for myself when I want to work on curating a space that I feel safe and connected in. It's very, very light, very gentle. And I would love to have more Cancer decks, specifically decks that dive into the emotions, but I don't think I'm ready for that. Like, I don't think that is what I need to be focusing on right now, and this deck kind of shifts away from emotion, if you will. Like, it's not that it won't talk about emotions, but it tends to be very tentative and hesitant to like step on anybody's toes. And I think that's okay. But it does give very, very clear, very easy to understand messages. And overall, I really enjoy this deck. But it's mostly used as a study tool for me just because of the type of readings that it tends to do. But yeah, so I wish I had more to say. I do think that when it comes to like Cancer, I resonate a lot with Cancer because I have 2 water signs. I have Scorpio and Pisces in my big 3. And so water signs, you know, naturally have a place in my heart. They feel at home to me. I'm comfortable there. But I feel like I need decks that push me out of my comfort zone, and this one doesn't necessarily push me, but it's definitely very supportive, and it feels like a mothering deck in like the healthiest of ways. So I do enjoy that, and I think that that is very much a Cancer energy. The deck itself, you know, believes it is a Cancer. I trust that. So yeah, that is, this is my Cancer deck. I wish there was more to say, you know, but it's just kind of like, yep, we're solid, you know? Alright, moving on to Leo. So this box is huge. It's going to be a little bit out of frame. I'm going to just try to move it here. I don't have like the flip mirror, so I don't know if this is going to show you everything, but I hope you can see the box. I'm going to be taking it out anyway, so anyway. This is the Cats Rule the Earth Tarot, and it's really silly because I asked this deck what its zodiac sign was, and it threw out the Strength card, and I was like, okay, that sounds like a joke, try again. And I did that a couple times, and then I kept getting the same card, and I was like, alright, okay, you're a Leo, I get it. But to have a cat deck be a Leo is just hilarious to me. This is such a cute little deck. My friend got it for me, but I have not used it very much, to be honest. I don't know why. I don't think I need the you go girl energy right now. This is the card right there. I don't need the you go girl energy, the you got this, you can be the center of the attention to let yourself shine energy, you know, which is very much Leo energy. And I also don't really feel like I'm struggling with like friendships or anything. I feel like Leo is such a social such a social deck about loyalty and working together. And I just don't feel like I need that right now. So I haven't really pulled this deck out. I wish I had, because then I would have more to say about how this deck feels like a Leo to me. But in all honesty, I don't know. I have nothing to go off of because I just haven't used it much. It's so cute. It's not necessarily the kind of deck I would get for myself, but it was a gift and I don't plan on parting with it yet. But I also don't think I'm like at that place where I'm ready to work with it. But I think it's absolutely hilarious that it is a Leo because it's just a bunch of cats. And honestly, the cardstock feels nice. It feels nice. It's a cute little deck for sure. I just haven't been drawn to work with it. But hey, I trust that it is a Leo. So. And this brings us to Virgo. So this is my only Virgo deck. It is the Cosmic Tarot. I don't know if that's the whole name or if it's cut off. But anyway, oh, it's over here. Okay, yeah, it was the whole thing. So Norbert Loesch? Yeah, Cosmic Tarot. So I got this deck gifted to me, and it is the second closest thing I think to a soul deck that I have. The closest being the Crow Tarot. This deck does have a bow in it. It came that way, but that's okay. Here's the backs. Very 90s, very like almost outdated, but I love that for it. So anyway, I actually really like Virgo energy. My friend has a Virgo deck, she started doing this zodiac sign thing too because I did. And her Virgo deck is the, oh, what's it called? I'm not entirely sure what it's called, but I'll put it up on the screen. That's the deck, and that's her Virgo deck. And so for me, this is mine. And I feel like Virgo is very blunt, it's very direct, it's very poignant, I guess. So, I mean, again, ruled by Mercury, the communication here, rather than being sort of floaty and more intuitive and a bit more laissez-faire like Gemini, I think that Mercury in Virgo is much more precise and direct. I feel like with this deck, it's very much, here's your problem, here's what you need to do, the end. Like, it's very, very, very swift and honest and direct. I never have trouble with clarity with this deck, and I think it's just so cute. It's kind of modern in a way, but like it's the kind of modern that's almost a little fantastical, so I'm okay with it. It's still very whimsical to me, like, you know, so I'm okay with it being a little bit more whimsical, even though it's still also, in a way, modern. But I don't know, I like this deck a lot. Again, I don't do a ton of work with it because I feel like you only need to draw like 3 or 4 cards to fully understand like what you need. Like, I mean, it's very, very clear. So I never feel like I have to do a big reading with it. So it doesn't really come out for that. And I haven't yet used it for any client readings. I'm not really sure why. I don't think that it would, it's not something I need to be selfish with, but I just haven't felt called to do it. But yeah, I love Virgo as a sign. I feel like I communicate very well with Virgo, and I like my Virgo deck, and I would love to have the deck that I cannot remember the name of, that I showed you a picture of that my friend has, because I think that I would get along very well with that deck. I like the direct energy. So yeah, Virgo. Alright, next up we have Libra. So here is my first Libra deck. I have 2. So this one is Ethereal Visions Illuminated Tarot Deck by Matt Hughes. This is the first edition. So there is a second edition now, which includes more diversity than in this edition. However, I don't see myself buying the second edition because I'm not a fan of like the holographic foiling. I kind of like the gold. And I also have a really good relationship with this deck already, so I'm not pulled or drawn to buy the next edition. However, it is out there, so if you like this deck, you might like the second edition more, but there are 2 editions, so yeah. Anyway, so this deck was one of my first decks. It's the second deck I ever purchased, like for myself, and I have used it so much. It's fantastic for client readings, it's fantastic for me. I am in love with this deck. The foiling is gorgeous, it's held up. It, in a way, has become a workhorse deck. Like, in a way, it has been with me through the thick and the thin. Like, I mean, it's been through so much, seen so many people, done so many readings. It can be a workhorse deck on its own. But what I love about this deck, and the reason I think it's very much Libra energy, aside from the way it looks, because I think the aesthetic is very Libra in my mind, aside from that, I think what makes this deck feel very Libra to me is it's very balanced, and when it gives readings, it doesn't target one problem. It kind of looks at the big picture. So if you have like an argument with a friend, say, and you're trying to figure out what's going on, you're trying to come to some conclusion about that argument, then this deck is the one that's going to say, hey, you know, it's not just the argument that is your problem. You also have this problem with, say, another friend who's affecting the situation, or you have a toxic relationship with your sense of worth in this relationship. And it kind of like digs at these other issues and looks at your life very much from a holistic perspective. So for general readings, which I give to my clients, this is an amazing deck to choose because it loves that general, big picture, overall, make sure we're looking at every aspect of life sort of energy. So I really like it for that because I do think that it does that very well. It does have 2 extra cards. The Artist and the Well was shown earlier, but it does love that very balanced, very wholesome, like, well, wholesome's like sweet, but like the holistic, I guess, like the whole thing kind of energy. And I think that's really helpful in readings. So I really like this. I also feel like this gives like kind of like nice like romantic vibes, and I feel like it can be good in romance readings, so I like it for that too. But yeah, I really like this Libra deck, and I feel like it captures that softer side, that let's look at everything, let's like remind ourselves that balance is needed in every aspect of life, and if something's out of balance, it'll affect the whole picture. So I think that this deck does that very, very well. Alright, so now we get into my sun sign, Scorpio. So we have the Darkwood Tarot here by Sasha Graham and art by Abigail Larson, and I'm just going to go ahead and take the deck out. So here are the backs. So this deck was also hard for me to get used to. It didn't want to bond with me immediately, funny enough. But yeah, it's like my spooky deck. This is the one I pull out around Halloween. It's perfect for spooky season readings, for October readings, for fall readings. It's a shadow work deck, and I love shadow work. I love the darker side of life, all things spooky, all things mystical and occult, and this deck feels that way for me, and it is very much a Scorpio. It's filled with depth, it's dark, it's mysterious, you gotta like work to understand it a little bit. It can be a little reserved, it doesn't just give you the information immediately. It communicates in a way that is very similar to how I communicate. Being a Scorpio, like as an energy for a deck, I'm a Scorpio Mercury, so this works really, really, really well for me. It didn't work as well at the beginning. Like I said, at the beginning, we were not understanding each other, but now that I've had this for a few years, we are really well bonded, and I love pulling it out at the end of the year. Again, very dark, love the shadow work, and I love the meanings in the guidebook. The guidebook is really thick. It has a lot of like interesting things. It has like a shadow meaning, which is not necessarily what the reversal would normally mean. It's a kind of like a darker, more inner reflection, definitely a shadow work meaning to the card rather than just the traditional reversal meaning, and I love that. So this one and my Crow Tarot come out very like at the same time of the year for the most part and work really well together. So I definitely like doing both, and I think both are really great for dark and spooky readings. Alright, so now we are on Sagittarius, and this is the newest deck in my collection at the moment. Well, newest and oldest. Literally the oldest deck in my collection, physically anyway, and the newest to me in my collection. So I got this deck very, very recently. I haven't worked with it a ton, and it took me a long time to figure out what its zodiac sign was. And I think I have the YouTube short on YouTube, where I talk about this deck, where I interview it. I'm shuffling through it, and it gave me its zodiac sign, and I thought it was a Taurus because it gave me the Hierophant, or what would be the Hierophant. It was the 5th card. And then I thought about it. I sat on it for a while, and I was like, this isn't a Taurus. I know it's not. I just don't know what it is. And I realized that on that card, the Hierophant had been renamed to Jupiter. And the second card that this deck kept throwing out with Jupiter was the King of Wands. The King of Wands represents Sagittarius. Jupiter is the ruling planet of Sagittarius. And I was like, oh, okay. So this deck, goodness, I got it at an antique store. It is a Marseille deck, and it was made in 1970. So it's older than my mom. So this deck is definitely the oldest in my collection, and I do believe it was well loved before coming to me. So it's very interesting. It's in French, the titles, but it is very much like Marseille styled. It's just a little different. So it's not totally Marseille. It's kind of like its own thing, honestly. But I'm here for it. I like it. And I've tried doing a couple readings, but I think I need to do a lot more study before I can do readings with this deck. Because this deck definitely encourages you to look at things very elementally and numerologically. And I struggle sometimes to do that. Not like it's too hard, but sometimes it just kind of goes over my head. As in, like, I don't think to do that. And this deck is like, I mean, if you got the 8 of Cups, you're looking at the number 8, and you're looking at the suit of, like, water, so the suit of Cups as, like, water. And you need to look at it very much in that light. Again, just, here's that Hierophant card, it's Jupiter. And the fact that it was with the King of Wands, I was like, oh, you were trying to tell me you were a Sagittarius this whole time. And here I was stuck on thinking of the traditional RWS, you know, number 5, and I was like, well, that's not a fire sign. I'm really confused. And I should have been looking at it very much from a more, like, a more elemental and numerological and spiritual sort of way. Like, I need to figure out who some of these characters are and their spiritual significance before I continue working with this deck. And there you go, you have that one, yep. So it's such an interesting deck. I am fascinated by it, but it's going to require, like, some spiritual work. And, you know, I shouldn't be surprised. If Sagittarius is connected to the 9th house, which is all about education and, like, philosophy, I really shouldn't be surprised that I have to study this deck and dive into the philosophies, dive into the spiritual significances of the tarot in order to work with a Sag deck. That really shouldn't surprise me, honestly. And I think that's very fitting. So yes, this is my Sagittarius deck. It is very, like, traditional, but, like, it demands something of you. It demands, like, education and spiritual awareness, and I love that. It demands higher thinking and higher connection with yourself. It's not how I expected my Sagittarius deck to be, because I always thought Sagittarius was going to be more fun and fiery and excitable, and it's so much more than that, and I should have known. So I am so excited to work with this, but it's going to be a lot before we are, like, on the same page, you know? Alright, my beloved Capricorn deck. So this is my first ever tarot deck, well loved, well beat up, you know, the box anyway. This is my main workhorse deck. This is my beloved. It's all beat up, it's been through a lot. I love this deck. This deck and I have such an intimate relationship, honestly. First deck I ever owned. I'm never parting with this deck, ever. And it is also one of my harshest decks. Like, what a harsh teacher Capricorn energy is. I'm a Cap rising, and this deck and we communicate so easily. I see the card, I know exactly what it means, and then it just tears me to shreds. Like, this deck knows how to be very blunt, very aggressive, but it's, like, so practical at the same time. This is my Capricorn deck. It only likes career readings. Do not try to attempt to read anything else with this deck. You can only talk about career. If you try to talk about anything else, the deck just tells you to cry. Like, I kid you not, it throws out, like, the 8 of Swords, the 9 of Swords, or the 10. It's like, I don't know, go cry about it, have a good time, you know, like, just don't ask me, you know? So don't ask it about romance, it hates that. but it loves career. And oh gosh, yeah, I don't know what to say. I love this deck so much. I've been using it a lot more recently because I have been in some career troubles, as well as just some like higher calling troubles, and the deck doesn't seem to mind too much to talk about like higher calling and what you want to do with your life, like life purpose. It doesn't really mind that too much, which is good. So I've been using it a lot for that recently. 3 of the cards have been taken out, so you probably didn't see them during the flip through. That is the Hierophant, the High Priestess, and the Page of Wands, because I have them on my altar, so I'm trying to work with those energies right now. I'm very much trying to work with this deck at the moment, so yeah, but it's, gosh, it's like my first love, you know, and it is a true Capricorn in every sense of the word. Very much a Saturnian deck, very much a deck that is like a 10th house deck, like everything, in every way it is Capricorn. I am kind of surprised that I don't have other Capricorn decks, and you know, I think I could have, except this has such strong Capricorn energy for me. It came to me when I desperately needed career help and when I needed a lot of tough love and tough growth, that like nothing can take its place, nothing can compare. So I think that's why I don't have any other decks that are Capricorn. But alright, funny enough, the Dungeons and Dragons tarot deck is also an Aquarius. So a lot of people have issue with this deck because the suits have been renamed, and that can be very confusing. So like, we have like strength, we have the 5 of strength, or the 7 of intelligence, or the 4 of charisma, and that can get really confusing. But I think it's kind of quirky, and all of my air decks are very quirky for the most part. So yeah, and the Dungeons and Dragons tarot deck, I love the fantasy vibes. I've never actually played D&D. I would love to, but I've never done it. And I love the fantasy vibes in this deck so much. It is so cool, and it's an Aquarius. I mean, if I think of like anything fantasy with that's kind of quirky, kind of weird, kind of different, that's Aquarius energy. And this deck feels like that to me. It feels like that side of Aquarius that is fun and unique and explorative. It feels very much, I don't know, like, I mean, it's just so bizarre, and I think that to me feels very, very Aquarian. So, I don't know, I haven't read with this one much. I definitely need to. I am probably going to use it for client readings a lot more. I've used it once for a client, but I think it will come out more often for client readings. But I also need to just practice it and work with it myself and get to know this deck. I love the images so much, and I don't even care that things are renamed. I feel like it makes me look at it in a different way, and I really value that. And this is going to be such a great inspiration deck. I'm a fantasy author, and I feel like this will be super fun for like creative work, and like if you're stuck in a plot or something, I feel like this will be really good to talk about my books with. Maybe I should start doing that. Like right now, I'm in a sort of like writer's block period. If you guys follow me on my TikTok, I post more about my books there, but I also post about it on Instagram sometimes. But I'm in like a writer's block place right now with my book. Alright, and we have finally reached Pisces. Oh man, this has been a long video for me. Okay, so we have, the Tarot of the Divine by Yoshitani. This deck, oh my god, it is so cute. It is so sweet. I don't use it as much as I did before because I have other decks that sort of take up this whimsical space for me now. But by golly, whenever I do romance readings for other people, whenever I do it for myself, this is the deck. It is such a cute deck. I edged mine in blue. I don't know if I'm in love with the blue anymore, but I also don't like the white that it comes in. I feel like it needs to be re-edged or something, so I've used it so much, and it's like kind of like, not chipping, I don't know what the right word for that is, getting beat up. But oh my goodness, this deck, every time I look at it, it's like this cute little cartoon thing, but there's so many myths and legends from around the world. I love this deck. It is so cute. It feels amazing to work with. I love all of the myths tied to it. I need to purchase the larger storybook that kind of comes with it. It's a bigger book that talks about each of the myths in here. For now, I've just been Googling the myths. Like from the guidebook, it'll tell you where the myth is from. So like we have the Eight of Swords here. And in the guidebook, it'll tell you with the Eight of Swords, it's a French fairy tale. And it says, Donkey Skin was forced into hiding to escape a bad situation. Now she is faced with the decision to continue the life she has created or step out of her self-made prison. So like if you look up like Donkey Skin, France, French fairy, you'll find it on the internet, and then you can read the fairy tale associated with it. So that's something that I have done, and it's a way to definitely like connect the deck. I have not read all 78 stories, but it has helped me to connect with the cards a lot more, just reading those stories when I do small readings for myself. But I haven't really pulled it out as much recently, just because I haven't needed relationship or romantic advice, and nobody around me has needed it, and I haven't had as many romantic readings scheduled in my client readings, so yeah. But I love this. It feels very Pisces to me. It's very dreamlike, very whimsical, very soft, very intuitive. I feel like when I read this deck, it's very intuitive, but I also just love all the myths and stories connected to it. It's just such a cute little deck. I really, really love this one, and that is why it's a Pisces. Not because I love it, but because it's very whimsical, very dreamy. So, alright, and that was all of the tarot decks that I have and their zodiac signs that I've assigned them, or they've like told me that there's their sign. You get the idea. So I've been wanting to do that for a long time, but I was waiting to get a deck that filled a few spots, and most notably Aries and Sagittarius, because fire sign energy just doesn't really come my way as much in tarot decks. So I was trying to ensure that I had at least one deck to show for every single sign, and we are finally there. So I was like, heck yeah, I'm gonna do this. At some point, I will be getting more decks, I know that. And I would love to do either like deck aesthetics based on the different elements of the zodiac signs. So like Aries, Sagittarius, and Leo, the fire signs would have certain deck aesthetics, and then so on. Or doing something like Dawn Michelle just did, where she showed decks that feel like Aries on her channel, which kind of covers a few more decks that look like the Aries aesthetic, and then just do that for all the zodiac signs. I'm still working out how that will work, and that may not happen for a long time, but it is something that I've considered. So if you guys really enjoyed this video, let me know if you would like to see something similar. But yeah, that was all of my decks at the moment that are tarot decks that are, and their assigned zodiac signs. So anyway, thank you again for watching. I am beyond tired now, because I just realized I basically did a deck collection. But I am very, very tired now. So anyway, thank you again for watching, and if you have any comments or questions, please be sure to leave them down below. And yeah, until next time, I will catch you later.